The idea behind Oxygene 7 to 13 was not to do the kind of Rocky 2. It was more an idea of getting the continuation of something I had I've done a few years ago, and I had this idea almost right away. I stopped the first Oxygene. I didn't plan necessarily to do this Oxygene 7 to 13 this year necessarily. It could have been last year or next year, but it happened like this, and at a moment where it seems that a lot of people seems to be more and more interested by analog instruments, analog synthesizers, to go back to, like for a guitar player to play on your old Stratocaster, for instance, instead of getting the last MIDI guitar or whatever. In a sense, it's I would say that if it's not my unplugged album, it's a kind of replugged album for me. I mean, to be replugged to my roots, to this kind of excitement I always felt by working on textures and working on sounds with no particular strategy, but just having fun about dealing with sounds. The main excitement for me of doing music is really dealing with textures, with colors, almost considering sounds like actors, like when you are directing actors on a stage. It takes time for each sound to being shaped by its neighbor, and so a part of this big part of the composition on this project has been also to work on the console with to really, I would say, knead, like you are kneading clay, kneading sounds. I felt that the first Oxygene has a kind of transparency quality because of the minimalist approach, the fact that you have so many layers, so each layer is much more important because it has some space, and the idea of letting time for each part to develop. It has been the most difficult thing for me, that for the new one. I think the new one has a different pace anyway. I mean, it's really like it's a true continuation, because the second one is a development of the first one. It's not exactly the same mood. It's a mood later, if I could say. One of my idea at the beginning was never in this project using more than 8 elements, if not 8 tracks, but not more than 8 elements at a time. I succeeded more or less, and because it gives then space to each sound. It gives a kind of oxygen to each sound. Went back to mainly to the first instruments as a starting point, the first analog instruments, the first instruments I've ever used in my life. They are like I would say part of personal museum almost. They seem these days like a Stradivarius of electronic music, the old Moogs, the old harps, the old mellotron or theremin. I felt such a kind of possibility of being organic, being sensual, being like a craftsman. I mean, really working with your hands and being tactile rather than just intellectual, with electronic instruments rather than acoustic instruments. It's not a problem of making comparisons and saying what is the best. It's just a different attitude. And I've always been fascinated as almost like a child by these analog gear, where you can really, I mean, I would say, fiddle about. I mean, play with sounds and play with not with concepts, but actually with ingredients. For this project, I tried also to move a lot, to travel a lot, to try to get not necessarily influences in terms of sounds, but influences in terms of landscapes and moods, to try to not coming in a recording studio with just preconceived ideas of themes or sounds, but trying to trap myself in different situations by experimenting in various places or various countries with almost like when you're playing violin. I used a lot one keyboard and one small recorder to just being able to exactly like with an acoustic guitar or with a violin or a portable instrument, to be able to make music on top of a mountain or by the sea or in the country or anywhere, to try to break the walls of the recording studio, basically. The mixing for this project has been really the part of composition and doing the tracks and doing the tunes by not only in a mixing situation when you are, for instance, you think that you should have more bass in automation process, as we know, you just move the bass. In that kind of music, if you move the bass slightly, you are changing the whole perspective of the soundscape. So you have actually to reposition everything. And this constant repositioning that the manual mix allows gives a kind of special life to the sounds that was quite important for this piece of music. What I like with the remix situation is it helps to make the process of finishing the album less painful, because you can still continue to be immersed in your own work for weeks, because I mean you are remixing the first single, then you have the second single, the third single. It's a process that can last forever. It's what you have to stop at one stage, but it's quite nice because you can experiment on a finished project, what is also quite exciting. I always thought that the album cover is very important, even more important for what I'm doing than for an album made of songs. The idea is to try to give an opportunity to have a kind of visual continuation. So for this particular project, I wanted to work with the artist who did the first one, obviously. And he's a French artist called Michel Jarre, and he did the cover. These few covers for me. One was the Oxygene, Equinox, and Rendezvous also, and this new one had to be also a kind of continuation for him. And he went with the idea of reversing the process, where you had a human skull and a human presence in the world, in the earth, on the first one, and on the cover of the second one is the earth inside a human figure. The first one, it was not necessarily a statement, but it was linked with all these ecological problems that the late 70s had to face. By the end of the century, it's more linked to, I would say, surviving day-to-day life. And I like very much the idea of Michel Jarre about having the earth inside a human figure, and the earth is the heart of that guy, of that creature, this creature. And I think it's a good. When you put the covers back to back, I mean, it's quite interesting to. It's a nice graphic statement. I like this kind of poetic way of continuing the first idea.
Good morning, how are you? Right, very nice. Excellent choice of suit.
Yes. Kevin Godley is the director, doing the first video, with the idea of the music being the interface between the inside world and the outside world. I mean, kind of meditation on the letter O, on the symbol O of Oxygene. And then he created a sort of device with lenses of various diameters, where I can see through the outside world and you can see me through kind of deformed way through these lenses. But you know, you start with a very nice idea and you never know what's going on. There is a part of chance. I mean, 7 to 13, 7 and 13 are very interesting numbers, because 7 is a lucky number and 13 is a chance number. So I don't know at the moment where we are. I'm not partly obsessed to be the center or the star of the video. I think it entirely depends on what we want to do. Is when we started with this first video, I said to Kevin, look, I mean, it's depending on the concept. I mean, I know that some people want to see the artist in a video, but sometimes if the concept doesn't fit with the fact that you're in, the fact of being there, being in the video may be artificial. The Oxygene tour is going to be something totally different from my recent production, where I've been involved with a specific outdoor project involving architecture, involving environment, involving a lot of visual techniques I developed since these last 12 years or 15 years. The next project, this Oxygene tour, is about an indoor and more intimate concept. I mean, for theater, for arenas, and involving theatrical effect as well as computer images and I mean a kind of mixture of past and future in terms of visual techniques, and the whole idea is to focus this Oxygene tour on the music itself, on the idea of performing the music, and the scenography around it is around the music, and with the performance being the main thing. What will be for me rather a change with the recent productions, where the concept was sometimes more important, and this was the whole idea about the concert I've done in Houston or in China or all over the world these past few years, that the concept was the performance itself. Welcome to my website. I'm very excited by the internet concept. It seems to me that actually we don't talk enough about the magic and the poetic aspect, the poetic side of internet. And if so many people around the world are excited by internet of cyberspace, even without knowing what it is, or having almost most of the people don't use internet, but they're all fascinated by internet because by what it carries. I like this kind of situation where we are back in the silent movies time. I mean, it's exactly that. I mean, it has a kind of it's quite nice because it's so rough. It's quite. I think we should use that.
Okay.
It's really nice. As an artist, I'm actually even more excited by this aspect of playing with what internet means than actually working on internet most of the time, because it has still today it has a kind of heavy process to get into, and I would say that almost that internet is great until you are facing your computer. It's amazing to see how fascinated we are by a kind of very rough video animation when we have HD video or HD TV, but we are still fascinated by something that is so rough in terms of technology, but that carries a dream of pioneering in new territories. Oxygene carries who I am. I mean, it takes time to assume who you are, to accept that you're not doing, you're not able to do jazz or rap or classical music or rock or whatever. You are able to do one thing in your life and to try to improve this thing. And I think that you have to repeat. I mean, I think I'm a great believer in the fact that in the idea that you have to repeat yourself over and over and over again to make it happen, to finally find what you are trying to express. I mean, everybody is doing the same movie, everybody is doing the same record, but each time trying to improve or to reject what he has done in the past, and then at one stage you are in phase with yourself and the audience, and I think that Oxygene, I hope, carries the Oxygene 7 to 13 carries the touch of naivety or spontaneity that I had for the first one, and link with the experience and where I am today.